Here to talk about agriculture and water, and I'm going to just follow up on the theme that Kim started off with, was living water smart. I'll just jump ahead to what some of the commitments that living water smart makes for agriculture. And one of the key statements in there is that we're going to secure water to agricultural lands. A very easy thing to say in a document like this, but now we have to figure out how we're going to do that, and that becomes a little bit more of a task. But the document certainly does say that agriculture needs water, we need to secure it. It also says we're going to monitor large users, which in a lot of cases will be farmers, probably larger farmers. It calls on agriculture to become more efficient, to lessen our impacts on soil and water, to use reclaimed water wherever we can, to protect riparian areas, and to grow crops that are suited to climate and soils. So these are some of the things that are sort of high-level statements that are in the Living Water Smart document. And in response to that, the Ministry of Agriculture has been working on, okay, where are we going with agriculture and the whole agriculture and water issue? You won't be able to read all the stuff, but we have prepared a document that has 34 one-page sheets on what we consider to be the number one, the big issues for agriculture. Some of them are things like extending the growing season, extending the irrigation license season, using part season licensing, which we can't do right now, the captures, spring freshet waters, things like that. Obviously reserving water for agriculture, becoming more efficient, all these kind of things. There's a whole bunch of them. I have this in a PDF if anybody's interested in actually getting the document to see where we're going from the agriculture plan to work with the province on this Living Water Smart. I can send this to you and you can certainly use it or review it or provide comments back to it if you don't agree with some of the statements that are in there. So that document was developed. It has had a bit of circulation. We've had feedback on it. We had a session back in the Interior last year where we actually ranked these, where we asked people, how important are these to you? There's a system where they can sort of say it's got a high consequence or a high risk. And based on that, we ranked each one of these issues so we kind of know which ones we should be going after first and which ones are issues but maybe not ranked as highly. And they've also been divided into 6 categories of securing water, water governance, pricing, and so on. So I mentioned a couple of these already. So what are some of our issues? We want to extend the irrigation season beyond September the 30th. Now that sounds like we want more water. And Al already mentioned the issue up in the Nicola about farmers having to be cut off from water in September because of the fish coming up to spawn. We see this actually as a real benefit to fisheries because right now the irrigation license says you can only irrigate to September 30th, then you have to shut down. So farmers are frantically trying to get their last irrigation on their fields right now throughout the province. If we would allow them to go into October, they may not have to irrigate in September and they could let the fish come in and spawn and do their thing. Later on in October when the fish flows aren't as critical, there's maybe been some more rain, the streams may come up in flows, and we can irrigate then. That would be a really good thing for lots of parts of the province. So there's just one example that we're trying to change in the Water Act, and in some parts of the province this makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to go into each one of these because we don't have time today, but that's just, each one of those one-pagers gives you the background to the issue, what we think we can do about it, who should do it, and when we think we can do it by. So it has a bit of a summary on these 34 issues. A lot of people don't realize that it's ethical to BC that most farmers pump their own water. That's probably a pretty obvious thing in Langley where you're either pumping from groundwater or some people may be getting it from a water license. But if you go to the Okanagan, for example, almost everybody gets it from a parade system in a pipe from a water purveyor, municipality, or irrigation district. The rough stats for the province, self-pumped about 65% of farmers, supplied by a purveyor about 23%. Surface water, groundwater, these numbers are old. I think our groundwater use is actually higher. It's very high in areas like Langley. It's not as high as you go around the province. It looks relatively low, but very significant in parts of the province. The North Okanagan, the Grand Forks area, Langley, other places, very significant groundwater use. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the one issue, which I think you're going to go out to a farm today and you're going to see a drip system and see other irrigation, water management type issues. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about irrigation, only because I've got a little bit of time and it's just one of the many issues I can talk about. I chose this one. So if we're talking about improving water management for agriculture, it really does come back to irrigation. Yes, we have livestock water, we have crop water, we have all these other uses, but the really big one is irrigation. And when you look at irrigation, there's really three things that we have to do. We have to select a system that's efficient and it's suited for the job. And there's lots out there that are incorrectly selected. Once you've selected the efficient system, you have to make sure you've designed it properly. So it's about irrigation design uniformity. And if you've done both of those things, then you can schedule that system properly. And the water really is, the cheapest water you have is the water that you already have. Trying to develop additional water resources or trying to get more water is much more expensive than making better use of the water that you already have. So the irrigation system design parts, the ministry has developed manuals that are there that people can go to. So we have comparing apples to apples. Everybody should be able to design the system the same way. And we're not expecting farmers or homeowners or whatever else to design the systems. We have got a program where we have certified designers that can do that. These people are trained to design uniform systems, to make sure that they're efficient, make sure that the pricing is right and fair, all that kind of stuff. So there is a program that you can adopt and farmers can go to and sort of say, is it a certified plan? I like to have a plan developed, signed and sealed, so I have some assurance that it's been designed correctly. So that program is there. You can find out more about the program. You can find out who the certified designers are by going to irrigationbc.com. So that's about the design. So then, and that's also about uniformity, which I'm not going to talk too much about, but that's a really big thing, is uniformity. And I'll just tell a really quick story. I just said this to council, I think, in the meeting last week. If you are a homeowner and you buy an underground irrigation system, your objective is to have a green lawn. And when one part of that lawn goes brown, you're going to run the system longer until it turns green. That's the uniformity question. Because ideally, you'd like everything to turn green at the same time. And if you're trying to water the brown spot to get it green, you're overwatering the rest of the yard. Well, the same thing applies to agriculture. We want uniformity. We want every plant to get the same amount of water. If you don't have a good system design, it's not going to be able to do that. So the uniformity is key. But once you've done that, then it's about scheduling your system, applying the right amount of water at the right time. This is data from the Southeast Kelowna Irrigation District in Kelowna, and you can see that in the middle of summer, if you follow our guidelines, we're pretty well scheduled in when it's hot and dry. The challenge is putting on the right amount of water in the spring and the fall. And you can see back in '95, I think this was, that farmers were applying way more in the spring than they had to. And by getting them onto irrigation scheduling, they could cut down their water use in the spring and the fall, and the district could keep water in storage and save water. So that was kind of the idea. So scheduling became kind of a thing that we really spent a lot of time on in the last few years. So I'm going to fast forward. At that time, we were doing soil moisture monitoring, climate monitoring. Everything was by hand. Then along came the environmental farm plan program. We asked our planners to go out to farms and sort of say, look, do an irrigation assessment, give them some ideas about how they're supposed to water. There's a lot of math involved in this thing. The planners sort of came back and said, this is a little hard for us to do. So we started thinking, if we had a tool that you could go to and put all the numbers in and let it calculate the stuff for you, it would make it a lot easier. So as of this spring, we developed this irrigation scheduling calculator. You need to put in your crop type. It automatically picks all the right stuff once you pick your crop. Your soil type pulls in all the information about the soils. A little bit about your irrigation system, what your sprinkler spacing is, what size the sprinkler is, things like that. And it does the rest of the calculations. You then go into this irrigation scheduling tab and say, please call up the weather station data from the weather station closest to my farm. You click on that, put in the date that you first or last irrigated or started your irrigation, and it provides you with this output. Okay, so Al mentioned this, environmental farm planning. We do have a component in there called the irrigation management plan. Farmers can go in and do an assessment of their system. If they find that there's something wrong with the system, there were BMPs in the past that they could apply for, that they could improve their irrigation system. Number one draw on the environmental farm plan program. Right, Dave? Right. So a lot of people want to obviously improve their irrigation or get a new system. That program allowed for that. And I think that's it.